Hello, everyone. My name is Ashley, and today I will be sharing with you a bit about Cuban-born artist Ana Mendieta, her famous Silueta series of the 1970s, and mainly an artwork from the series that stood out to me most, titled Imagen de Yagul. But before I present the image, I'd like to begin with some important background information. Ana Mendieta was born in Havana, Cuba in 1948, but only got to spend her early life there. In 1961, she was exiled from Cuba and relocated to the United States as part of Operation Peter Pan. So, just around the age of 12, she was torn apart from her family and her home, experiencing what seemed to be the most traumatic event of her life. However, these traumatic events, along with a longing for learning more about her Cuban heritage, would come to inspire much of her work later on. When she arrived in the United States, she was relocated to Iowa and would later study art there at the University of Iowa throughout the 1970s, beginning in 1969, which brought about some of her first performances as a multimedia artist. She used mediums such as video, photography, natural materials, and most importantly, her body. In 1973, she began taking trips to Mexico, where she sought to learn more about indigenous Central American traditions and the Caribbean religion of Santeria, as she wanted to connect more with her Cuban or Caribbean roots, but obviously could not do this as a Cuban exile. But obviously could not do this in her homeland as a Cuban exile. She began her work at the pre-Columbian site of Yagul in Mexico, with her Silueta series beginning the same year she began her travels in 1973, and this series spanned about 4 years, being completed in 1977. Themes of Santeria and feminist thought came to dominate much of her work, which can be seen in one of her very first works of the Silueta series and the focus of this presentation, her 1973 Imagen de Yagul, which translates to image from Yagul, presented on this slide. As we can see, 1973 was a very significant year for her as an artist. Imagen de Yagul displays an image, or rather a performance in which Mendieta lies on a rocky outdoor surface on the archaeological site of Yagul, with her naked body completely covered in white flowers, forming a flowery silhouette of herself. It appears as if the foliage is sprouting from her, making her a part of the earth, which ultimately was her goal through her Silueta series. And if it isn't already apparent, Silueta translates to silhouette. This is important to note as her physical silhouette was made the focal point of all of her Silueta works, whether she presented her body or simply left behind an outline of her body. And we will get into why she did this. As a woman of strong feminist belief and one who took deep interest in Santeria traditions and orishas, otherwise known as gods, the Yamaya Orisha was especially honored and worshipped by Mendieta as she is the goddess of womanhood and maternity and serves as a protector for women, all values and attributes that Mendieta heavily aligned herself with. Mendieta often liked to cover herself in plants or create silhouettes of herself using plant materials when referencing Yamaya, not only as a ritualized way of honoring this deity, but also as an offering to her. In Imagen de Yagul, Mendieta both becomes the goddess possessing her spirit while simultaneously offering herself to this goddess. Now, I'd like to show you a few other examples from Mendieta Silueta series, pictured here to compare with Imagen de Yagul. On the left, we have Blood and Feathers, and on the right, we have an artwork that is, to my knowledge, untitled, but displays a bloody imprint of Mendieta's body across a white sheet. You may be able to recognize certain themes and patterns throughout these works that I've discussed thus far, but these images really only scrape the surface of the works she produced over those 4 years of the series. As you can see in these examples, the use of Mendieta's body was incredibly important for the conduction of these artistic Santeria-based performances, making them feel very ritual-like. Mendieta almost always worked with natural materials, as this was her way of connecting with the spiritual energy of the earth. Throughout this series, she uniquely uses the earth as her brush, while also making the earth, in addition to her body, her canvas. Nearing the 1980s, Mendieta moved to New York to pursue art on a larger scale and make advances in her career, which were proving successful for some time, but would be short-lived. The year 1985 would mark a tragic end to Mendieta's life and career as she mysteriously fell out of a 34-story window from her New York apartment after reportedly having a drunken argument with her partner and fellow artist Carl Andre. She was only 37 years old. Some have labeled her death as an accident or a suicide, while others believe that Andre pushed her. Unfortunately, we may never know the truth, but her untimely violent death definitely incited feminist outrage. To end this presentation, I would like to state this very sad but very powerful quote by B. Ruby Rich, a feminist writer and old friend of Mendieta. Her body hit the surface so hard that her head left an imprint. Even her death echoed her art. If you're interested in seeing some of Ana Mendieta's work on display, you can visit MoCA, located here in Los Angeles, or if you ever make travel plans to New York, a lot of her work is also displayed at the Met, and I'm sure many other galleries that I've not mentioned. I really hope you took away something interesting from this presentation, and I thank you for listening.